Hello and welcome to the Rabblecast in the year of 2024. It's the first episode. Can you believe it?
No.
My name is Eric Hernandez here along with,
Doug.
and we can jump right back into it. We took a week off for the holidays. It worked out. We talk about why, just kind of like recharge our batteries a little bit. And my family and I end up getting sick. We go into that more in the episode. But we get back into talking about the world of professional wrestling. Wasn't planned. It just happened to be one of the topics that came up. And like, yeah, sure. Well, let's just run with it. And with that being said, we are brought to you by InsidePulse.com. You can find us under various different sections over there. Just type in Rabblecast, Inside Pulse. You'll find us there. You can also find the show over at Rabblecast.libsyn.com. Find us on YouTube at Rabblecast. Follow us over at the Rabblecast Facebook fan page. Follow us on formerly known as Twitter or X at Rabblecast. And email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. Anything else, sir?
No, I'm good.
When's the last episode of Wings on Wings? Is that still coming?
We have 3 episodes left of season 7, and then we have to go through season 8, which is 24 episodes. So we've got
Jesus,
at least 27 weeks worth of recording left to do. Plus, I think we have 1 in the can. So it's, I think last time we counted it out, Wings on Wings would be recording its last episode sometime in August.
there you go. Okay, there's an update for you.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it then. Is that the intro? Yeah, there's all the usual. Oh, and as always, if you're listening to the show, like, review, subscribe, wherever you follow the show with different platforms. Share it with your friends. Let them know what's going on. It's always fun. And I think that's it. Are we clear? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Enjoy the show.
All right. Well, we're back.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, how are you?
I am tired, very busy, and looking forward to being done with end of year work at my silly ass job. How about you?
I am tired. The holiday break was a much needed break, although we all got sick during that break. Yeah, we've talked about it before how our wedding anniversary, mine and Jen's, not your and mine, our wedding anniversary falls 2 days after Christmas. So we normally go out and do something or, make some plans. But it's during all of the holiday rush and everybody's getting together with family and friends. We both woke up and we're just like stuffed up and coughing. Like, you know what? Let's just stay home. I believe that was the day that you had texted me. Like, all right, ready to go. I'm like, I'm not. I was like,
It was the 28th. I think it was last Thursday.
no,
I
okay.
forgot we were taking that week off.
It was the day before we woke up sick. But yeah, when you texted me, I was like, well, even if I wanted to do a show tonight, I'm going to sound awful. So I was like, no, it's a good thing that we decided to take the week off. And then your text came in. I was like, all right, well, enjoy the week, enjoy the holiday, and hopefully we can resume the following. But yeah, it was not I'm planning on it. Nobody plans on getting sick, but you have the time off and that possible considering that kids are running around and making a lot of noise. But thankfully their Christmas gifts were keeping them busy, so it wasn't all that bad.
There you go.
Yeah, that was about it. Nothing really like to call home about. This was actually a very subdued holiday season for us, considering.
Oh, yeah?
Normally it's a lot of running around. It's a lot of, catching up with people that we haven't seen in a while. But all right, so just to give you an example, and I say you as in the listeners, for Spanish families, for me, traditionally, we open our gifts on Christmas Eve.
Really?
We stay up late. As soon as midnight hits, we open our gifts. Everybody has fun, and you go to bed, and you sleep in the next day. Then you wake up and play with whatever you got. Uh, we've been having the tradition that we go over to my brother's for Christmas Eve. We get together for a little dinner, have fun, catch up, watch a game or two, whatever was on TV. And then we, open gifts. Not really for us. I mean, yeah, we open our gifts, but it's more for the kids at this point, just so they can get together
Yeah.
and see what they got. But we went to my brother's this year. Kind of quiet, kind of simple. And then we're supposed to go over to my in-law for Christmas morning, but she wasn't feeling well. She had just gotten out of surgery a few days prior. It was this whole to-do. Thankfully, she's on the mend. She's feeling better. But she herself wasn't feeling that great. So, all right, we're not going to go there for Christmas morning. That's one thing knocked off the list. And then later in the evening, we're supposed to go over to Jen's aunt and uncle in North Jersey.
Okay.
And we went there, but almost half the people canceled because they were either not feeling well or just not feeling up to it, unfortunately. And it was like, oh, okay, no problem. We get there, and they had just started dinner, and we saw there was reduced amount of heads around the table. Like, oh, what's going on here? But again, it was kind of quiet, kind of simple. The kids ran around a little bit, had some fun. But that was like the extent of our holiday runaround this year. Normally we have more, but I guess because we were out of commission ourselves, there was no reason to, have a get up and go. It was more just like sit down and relax. So I was like, huh, all right, well, nothing crazy. I mean, the oldest made out like a bandit once again. The youngest was more interested in playing with the wrapping paper than the gifts. So it was simple enough, but at the same time, it's like, all right, just try to enjoy it for what it was. And then by the end of it, you're like, oh, got to go back to work. This kind of sucks. But I have this ongoing tradition, and it's funny because it happened to me again. So New Year's Day comes, we all celebrate, everybody reigns in 2024. And then I'm laying in bed that night, and I'm trying to get some rest because the next day we have to go back to work on the 2nd, and I can't fall asleep. It's a trend that I have for, I don't know how many years running. Once holiday break is over, fortunate enough to have one, but once it's over, I have trouble getting back to sleep. I have trouble getting back to a normal schedule unless I just pretty much stay up most of the night. And I say
this is what happens because you're a nocturnal guy.
Well, yes, that's the other part of it. Go to bed earlier. I'm like, it really doesn't work that way. My brain is more active at night than it is during the day. It's just the way I've been since forever. But I had confirmation on this because you know how Facebook Memories loves to plague you every now and then? Something that happens like 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Well, I believe it was like 10 or 12 years ago. I had made a post on Facebook to a very similar effect. Like, oh, I can't believe I got to go back to work tomorrow. Can't sleep. Going to be interesting. And I was like, oh, this has been going on for a long time. I don't feel like it's like it's not just me. No, I have confirmation that I've been going through this for quite some time. So I was like, whatever, I'll deal with it. I'll see what happens. I'll get through it. Morning came. I got up, did some exercises, got ready, went to work, blah, blah, blah. Same BS, New Year's, same crap going on over there. So did what I had to do, came home, was very happy that I was back home. And that's pretty much just been back to the routine, essentially, over the past few days. It's a short week, thankfully, but we're just having fun getting back to the swing of things. So now we get a chance, now that we're feeling better, and trust me, if you had heard me earlier this week, I was stuffed up. It sounded like somebody was holding my nose closed and I could not breathe through it. It was just really interesting. But now getting through it, getting better, enjoy myself. And now the weekend's almost here. One of the benefits of doing the show. The next day's going to be Friday.
Yep.
So, how about you? Anything special happened during the holiday break? Anything crazy, or you just did your usual thing?
I did very little. I visited a friend of mine in Philly. I spent Christmas Eve with my girlfriend, and we got up Christmas morning, had coffee and waffles, and hung out for a couple hours, went for a walk because it was like 55 degrees, perfectly normal weather for Christmas. Um, and then after that, just kind of parted ways, and that was about it for the day. And yeah, I don't do much. I'm not a Christmas guy, as I think we've talked about on the show before over the years, but just another day to me. I generally don't deal with it.
I hear you. Yeah, there was a bunch of people this year that had the not so much the bah humbug feeling about it, but it was just like, just Christmas, another holiday season. First time in quite a long time that I could remember. You know how everybody at the end of the year was like, "Oh, I can't believe this year has been horrible. Fuck this year. Can't wait for it to be over." This was the first year, or I should say, 2023 was the first time in a long while where I actually felt the same. It was a trying year, very difficult. It had its extremes, ups and downs. And I'm not one of those new year, new me. I think we've talked about it in the past. Like everybody talks about New Year's resolutions and what do you plan to do in the new year. It's like, look, I plan to do the same thing that I always plan to do. Try to, improve our position in life, save for a better future and all that stuff. So you have your ideas of what you want to do, and you hope that by the actions that you take, whether they be during the previous year or the next, that things hopefully steadily improve.
Mm-hmm.
You always try to go that way, because anybody right now, especially, one of the things that always irks me is the New Year, New Me crowd is the glut of people that return to the gym.
Ah, yes.
And I get it. You get your gym membership because the deals are going on right now. Come with us and say blah, blah, blah. But it's the people that go in for the first 2, maybe 3 months on a membership that was either gifted to them or they figure they're going to do something with themselves, and then they eventually peter out kind of thing. But it's always like, okay, I get it. You want to, again, improve yourself, improve your life, your health, hopefully. But at the same time, just like everybody that rushes back, I'm like, oh, if you're a regular gym goer, you get upset. Your stations are taking up more. The treadmills are taking up more. The classes that you want to sign up for might be taking up more. And just like, all right, let's get through this trial period. And once that's done, hopefully the things will go back to normal and everything else. Now, granted, I have a gym membership. I've had one since the beginning of the pandemic. But since the pandemic started, I have not been able to go. So it's a lot of money going out the window. Not egregiously, just a monthly membership that I have not been able to take full advantage of. So, but I don't know. It's the yearly thing. Everybody thinks that, this is going to be our year.
It's a tale as old as time. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. These are old things that happen all the time, every year. Nothing new, nothing new to see here, moving along. But you would hope a few things here and there might, I don't know, might dislodge and go back to the usual way things sooner than later. But that's I guess that's what I'm saying. I'm getting old.
Well, welcome aboard. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You do it to me all the time. When this movie came out, such and such, that song came out, and such. Screw you.
It's funny. I was watching a video that popped up on goddamn's oh Jesus H fucking Christ, Instagram, and it was some guy who was basically like, oh, here's a bunch of songs that are turning 30 years old in 2024, and I was like, yep, everything I expected on there. Yep, there we go.
I'm getting old. I'm getting closer to my AARP card.
And closer to the grave.
Yeah, it's funny that one of the things that I was able to do over the break was I was catching up with a bunch of different YouTube videos, pop culture and news, everything else in between. And with all the, this song is turning X amount of years old, whatever the case was, I was watching, and the majority of the people on YouTube are so young. When I say young, they're probably mid 30s and younger at this point. I guess upper teens, depending on who allowed them to get a channel if they're younger. But I'm like, wow, so many people have really, really just made YouTube a thing for themselves and somehow jumped on the monetization train so soon. And I don't know if they're raking it in but I'm sure they're making a decent amount of money that they keep doing it over and over again. I'm like, wow, how do these channels just fucking find their audience? It's so weird to have
You know,
such a glut of people doing it, and just like,
I honestly don't know. I never really looked into it because, well, I never cared because there's no video I can make that's going to make money. So I just never even bothered looking into it. So yeah, I never quite figured it out nor understood it or anything of that nature. So
well, it's just it. Like the majority of the videos that I come across, I'll bypass them because it's usually like, 10 reasons why this movie sucks, or the worst collection of songs this year. And I'm like, we've talked about it before, how the negativity on the algorithm, because it it tricks you to engage with it more and more on YouTube and other platforms. Those are the videos that get more attention because people are like, oh, I love that song. What the hell are you talking about? So
hmm
when you have that kind of reaction, you get more views and more people, tune into what you're saying. Not necessarily subscribing, I guess, but like we watch a bunch of different things: home improvement, scientific stuff. What's his name? Adam Savage from the MythBusters has his own channel called Tested, where he does like replica builds and geeky stuff here and there, and he has a bunch of other people that do their own little segments. So it's fun to see him work in his workshop. My son and I watched some Mr. Beast videos, which I get how he does it. Like he just
hmm
has built his channel to the point where all the money that he gets from his sponsors and from the views, he essentially just invests into his next video or project, and he just keeps the ball rolling that way. He's built that
Uh-huh.
momentum so he can do that. But it's like, man, like all this self-promoting, self-aggrandizing. It's like, okay, I get it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I'm ever comfortable being in front of a camera in that respect, but they figured it out. And
hmm
whether you want to sit there and um, criticize them or say, "Oh, you're doing this wrong. You could do this better," I'm like, "Hey, look, they're doing it. I'm not, so I'm not gonna crap on them because they figured it out. They figured a way to game the system, and things are working in that respect." Our friend Tiny, he has his own Twitch channel, and if anybody wants to check it out, it's Tiny TV, TYNYE TV on Twitch, and he has his schedule. He plays retro games. He plays some newer games. He goes out there and does it, and he has people that watch. He has people that follow, and that takes dedication and time. I mean, this show takes dedication and time to do, week in week out. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just like, I wish I had a little bit more know-how and time to try
hmm
to do something along those lines. I was going to try to do something like a little live Facebook thing during the holidays, but again, since we weren't feeling well, I was like, it's not worth it. I'm not feeling great. If the kids are going to be running around screaming in the background, it's really not going to make much sense. So I said, screw it.
hmm
Little experiments, little things that pop up here and there. Nothing that really ever gets actualized. So I don't know. We'll see. I have been watching more wrestling news now that CM Punk's back in the fold, so it's been interesting to try to catch up on some of the other ancillary stuff that's going on in the world of WWE and AEW. So that's been really interesting. And what did I watch today? I came home today, and I don't know if it was like a short for something. Really wasn't a short. It was like a 20-minute long video, but it wasn't a full story. It was the downfall of Vince McMahon on Vice TV.
Okay.
I don't know if you came across this one.
Never seen it.
Okay. They do like the first 20 minutes. They explain how Vince starts out. He's pretty much, living in a trailer park with his mom. When he finally meets his biological father, Vince McMahon Sr., he's running the territories. And you and I know the story from here, where Senior's running the territories. At one point, Vince Jr. wants to get involved. Once the deal is struck that he's going to buy his father out, and then he starts taking over the different territories. What I didn't know in this story was that apparently Vince Sr. did have a meeting with Jr.
hmm
at the behest of the other territory owners, saying, "Hey, your son's doing this, and tell him to cut it the fuck out." And when Junior has to respond and say, "Hey, Dad, look, I bought the company off of you. You technically work for me now, so you either do this with me or do it without you." And Senior had a moment where he's just like, "All right, let me think about this." And he goes, "Well, fuck those guys." It's like, oh wow, I didn't even realize it was to that extent. But from there, they talk about how it starts up and how they have the face and Hulk Hogan, and he becomes the, you know, the poster boy for the company. And then they trail off just when they talk about Jimmy Superfly Snuka was like one of the big stars for Vince McMahon. And then they had like a little trailer for another show that they're doing called The Nine Lives of. And they talk about different people that have gone through a lot of controversial times, but have been very successful despite what happened to them. They showed Joe Rogan, they showed Johnny Depp, and a bunch of other people that they just flashed on the screen real quick. So I'm like, was this just the 20-minute teaser for like a larger Vince McMahon story? I don't know. It was kind of weird, but I got like a few newer nuggets out of the Vince McMahon story in that video, and it's interesting, especially in light of now that WWE is under the TKO Holdings Group, same company that holds the UFC. Essentially, we've talked about this where the Vince McMahon era is essentially over. Now, Triple H and is it Nick Khan at WWE?
Yeah, I think Nick Khan is the top ranking executive who came over with them.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear that and some of the different deals that are being done now. And the WWE, especially right now, this month, they're getting ready for the Royal Rumble, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to. Not just because I love Battle Royals and Royal Rumbles, or just multi-man matches like that, but my son actually, a few weeks back, he goes, "Hey, Dad, when's the Royal Rumble coming?" I was like, it's coming in a few weeks, I believe. I think it's the month of January. He goes, "Can we watch it?" I was like, "You want to see it?" He goes, "Yeah, it was fun last time." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I might actually be able to watch the first pay-per-view event with my son since the last Royal Rumble. The fact that he enjoys big matches like that too, it seems kind of interesting. So we'll see how that turns out. I might actually have to report on it. You never know.
All right.
But yeah, it was, again, like the world of wrestling always, ventures on and never slows down. Although there was something new that happened this past holiday season, which was really interesting. Apparently there has been a new directive to let the wrestlers spend more time with their families during the holidays. So I believe for Christmas, the week of Christmas, I think they pre-taped the week previous or 2 weeks previous, so that they could just run a pre-taped show on the week of Christmas. That way, all the performers can stay home with their families rather than hitting on the road all the time. But then, I guess New Year's Day, they were referring to it as day one, and they were relaunching a bunch of different things. They were starting to set up a bunch of different storylines. And The Rock, once again, graced everybody with his presence as he came out and had a back and forth with Jinder Mahal, which is, once again, I watched the promo. I caught it on YouTube. It was like I think, again, like a 15, 20-minute video maybe. You could whittle it down with all the intros and everything else, but The Rock comes out, he does his shtick, it's very formulaic. By the end of it, he has the crowd chanting, and it's like, oh, okay. Even Jen looked over me and goes, "Wow, man, it still works, doesn't it?" I'm like, yeah, it still has its power. You go out there, you jaw jack, you say your taglines, and then you drop people's elbow and send the crowd home happy. But I don't know how it's going to play into the program going forward. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. So, but yeah, it's like I said, getting into the wrestling news again, it's very interesting because I'm not watching it on a regular basis, but hearing all the little ins and outs, and now the contract disputes, how much people are getting paid. CM Punk was the big one recently. We're like, oh, he came back, he got a big deal. But then I think it was I think Charlotte Flair was let go, they said at one point, but then I guess she renegotiated her contract. And then who was it? Mercedes Moné outside of WWE, Sasha Banks in the WWE, apparently is making big demands, bigger than Charlotte Flair got apparently. And
Hmm.
now rumors are saying that she might be headed to AEW instead. I guess Tony Khan might be willing to give her what WWE won't. So take that for what it's worth at this point. Yeah, it's just comes down to contract, comes down to getting raises, those bumps. If you're enough of a ratings getter, then you can negotiate for what you want. But otherwise, you're part of the mid card, you're part of the job list, and you just do your thing. And hopefully that something will hit and see what happens. But surprise, and did not expect to see this happen to Dolph Ziggler. Apparently, was let go from WWE.
Yeah, back about 2, 3 months ago. Yeah, they released them.
It shocked the hell out of me, especially considering that they were using him as a enhancement talent, as they refer to him as.
Hmm.
Because let's face it, Ziggler's been there for quite some time now, like what, 15 years almost.
Yeah, it's been a and he was very I thought for sure he was going to be an upper mid card guy, but for somewhere along the way he got yeah, I don't quite understand what went wrong with him. I think he just got kind of like pigeonholed as, oh, this guy's injury prone, so we're never going to pull the trigger on making a main event.
Yeah, I remember those conversations happening where they kept saying that he kept getting concussions, and they weren't sure if they wanted to push him that way, especially with everything with CTE. Now that they know and more informed on. So, and let's face it, Ziggler was willing to go out there and put his body on the line all the time. So he'd had some great matches, but like you said, he would get hurt quite often. So the fact that they had held on to him for so long and then suddenly just, oh, thanks, but no thanks. I don't know if that's part of the new regime change or what happened, but now apparently he might be debuting in New Japan with a new gimmick or new character. So,
Yeah, he showed up. Yeah, he showed up at Wrestle Kingdom, which is New Japan's iteration of their annual big event. And yeah, apparently he got into it with David Finlay, who I believe he just won the IWGP title. Which, if that's the case, then that's terrible. Um, but yeah, there was like a standoff between the two, and so apparently they're going to be doing something with him over there, which is interesting because Ziggler's brother Ryan Nemeth, I think he's currently working for AEW. So yeah, not sure what's going on over there.
oh, really?
Hmm.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. One of the things that I was reading was people saying that, oh, he's gone from WWE, his career is over. Like, when people talk about careers being finished or, oh, he screwed up or she screwed up, whatever the case is, look, anytime somebody leaves one company, again,
Hmm.
if they're good enough with their in ring ability or mic skills, they can always find work elsewhere, and it's probably for the better if they find work elsewhere. Our Truth went to TNA. Now, granted, TNA was not the big company it could have been. They were another opportunity, and what was his name over there? Ron Killings
Yeah.
became TNA champion. So, and again, people go, oh, yeah, that sucks. That means he's a low level champion. He worked somewhere else. He entertained the crowd. He was pushed, and he got an opportunity. Christian went to TNA, had a chance to work out some new stuff. It's like a comedian and essentially working out new material elsewhere. So whenever these guys leave, whether it be for TNA, for AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan, whatever the case is, it's always a good thing. Look at Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes helped AEW, kick things off. Did great over there. Once he realized he had reached a certain point, and he goes, all right, I'm going back to WWE where I can probably get more money and get a bigger opportunity again. He came back and he had worked this stuff through. He was more streamlined, more well-rounded as a performer. So for Ziggler leaving WWE after being there for so long,
Hmm.
that's a great thing in my book. So I'm hoping that he gets some work overseas, gets a different perspective, and then hopefully, who knows, maybe like another 2-3 years, maybe has a big comeback at a Royal Rumble or at a big pay-per-view, and then finally maybe they'll give him a run and say, okay, we'll give you the opportunity that we never gave you before, or they'll probably just put him back to being enhancement talent. You never know. It never works out 100%, but there's opportunity for growth and more experience at that point. Because if these guys really, really want to be there, and after 15 years there, I would imagine this is your life at this point, then yes, you can go and find work elsewhere and experience elsewhere and coming back and hopefully bring that with you and make that all work. So, yeah, there was a couple of different names that were either let go or renegotiated in both companies, AEW and WWE, which I was kind of surprised in. And I forgot that um, Nick Khan, no, excuse me, Tony Khan from AEW.
Tony Khan runs AEW. Nick Khan is the executive who was brought in to work in WWE.
Thank you. I keep getting easily conflated, and I can picture the AEW Khan in my head. I keep crisscrossing the wires on those two. But essentially, AEW also owns Ring of Honor as well.
Yes.
Which blew my mind when I first heard it. I'm like, really? That sounds kind of silly. Unless you're going to be using it as some type of like a feeding system in a sense. But then again, Ring of Honor had a prestige of its own for a while. But times have changed and that class of wrestlers have moved on to different companies. So I don't know how that is going to work out going forward. And I think there was some criticism as far as how AEW was going to use Ring of Honor. It's like, does it make sense? You're trying to be the big competitor to WWE. Does it make sense to buy the lower company and just hold on to it? A sense. I don't know. I'm so far removed from the world of professional wrestling at this point that I don't understand the idea behind buying Ring of Honor and how it was going at that point. Because I know they had a TV deal going on with Sinclair Broadcast Media for a while, and you were hoping that something was going to come of that, but it sat for the longest time. It didn't really have big news for quite some time. It would have moments here and there, but nothing that really set it apart from everybody else for quite some time. So I don't know. We'll see.
Well, the trick with I think one of the reasons why Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor is, well, for starters, he's a fucking internet mark. It's my personal guess because he was an old. Do you remember the Death Valley Driver message board?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a poster on there way back when.
That's surprising. Okay.
So yeah, he's also one of the hot speculations was that one of the reasons he bought it was because that was what he was watching 20 years ago. Also, the value in that, and this one's a little bit confusing. I tried to follow it down once upon a time, but one of the real values of Ring of Honor is the tape catalog. Because I mean they've been running shows for Jesus Christ, they're coming up on their 21st anniversary next month. But I'm not exactly sure. The ownership on that one's really squirrely because as it got sold between customer or between owners over the years, yeah, the ownership of the tape library has always been like a little bit odd and questionable. So I'm not exactly sure where all of those sit. But also it does kind of make sense in a way because AEW, as far as I could tell, as they're still trying to figure out who the hell they are as a company,
yeah,
I always felt like AEW was trying to position itself as, we're we're not WWE. WWE is super slick, sports entertainment. We're making movies, we're making memories, all that kind of crap. Where AEW is more kind of like a reference to more like one of the rough ass old school think like old wrestling territories where it's not going to be as slick of a project. It's more gritty. It's more intense. It's bloodier. It's more of the wrestling fans wrestling as opposed to the sports entertainment end of things.
yeah,
So in that sense, Ring of Honor does kind of fit because Ring of Honor at its core, it was all about, we're here to give you wrestling. We're either going to, if you want high flying, you've got it. You want technical wrestling, you've got it. If you want, when they did bloodbaths, they did bloodbaths. So I always kind of figured that was what they were up to with the entire thing. Be that as it may, it's also kind of works because in a ways you can kind of have guys like bounce back and forth between Ring of Honor and also between the main roster. I mean, they did that with Athena for the longest time, the former what the hell was her name in WWE? I can't remember her name. She's a black woman, really good wrestler, stiff as a motherfucker. Had an awesome series of matches with Asuka like 6, 7 years ago. I can't remember her name. It's not important right now. But last time I checked, she's the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. And holy crap, does she throw a fucking potato or three in every match? Um, but I like it in that sense. It's been pretty cool because guys who were Ring of Honor mainstays, like the big one I can think of who's constantly moving around all over the place is Mark Briscoe.
Okay.
That's a guy that they're using pretty regularly for both ends of shows. He'll show up in AEW, but he also still does Ring of Honor, and he is Ring of Honor through and through. I mean, him and his brother consistently worked for that country or for that company all since the inception, all the way up until Jay Briscoe's untimely death 1 year ago. So in my eyes, it does kind of fit. You know, is it ever going to be at the level of prominence that it once was? No, it kind of hit at that as it became the quote unquote super indie in the early 2000s, in a time period when that was possible, but not so much. Yeah, not so much now. Times have changed too much because the feeder systems are so much more different than what they were.
Yeah, and like I said, because it's been quite some time and that class of performers has moved on,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what do you what do you do at that point? You would hope that whatever writers or agents, however they refer to them as, but all the creative team can do something with the younger or the up and coming performer class. It's like once you lose certain performers, once you lose certain names, like how do you figure out how to move on? Like when Vince McMahon and the WWE started making fun of their old roster as far as like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man when they left for WCW, and they were trying to introduce the new generation of WWE superstars. You better have a plan in place for that kind of stuff, because if people lose the name recognition, then you don't have those performers to depend on. You're just like, okay, that's like, imagine if WCW had lost Sting and Flair and NWO like all at the same time. Like, what do they do? Like the people that they didn't really think were upper card now have to step up, and they better have a plan to put them in place, because otherwise, it was fun to watch the Lucha guys go at it in the beginning of the show. It was fun to watch the mid card guys battle over the cruiserweight title or the United States title. But if you don't have a plan in place, then it just falls apart really quick. And I feel like Ring of Honor just didn't have a good way to transition, especially since a lot of their stars did end up leaving for other companies overseas or WWE or otherwise. And I don't know. I guess that's the trick of the wrestling world, is that with sports, there's always a feeder system. You've got your college. Yeah, as far as football is concerned, you've got your college teams that always feed you more athletes, people that are coming in and out, free agents. Every year, people are trading or moving people around, whatever the case is. Contracts are being written up. WWE is trying to do that, especially with their performance center and the way they talk to former NFL, former MMA, and say, hey, look, come down to the gym and see if you got what it takes to work out for a little bit, and then see if this is what you want to do. But I feel like Ring of Honor and some other companies just don't have that set up. And again, now with AEW holding the reins, it would make sense if Ring of Honor became that, in a sense, where you had the opportunity to go to AEW, not so much as like an NXT, but just have that be another option. Like if you are signed with Ring of Honor, if they like what you're doing, they'll invite you up to a TV taping, or they'll invite you up to a pay-per-view and see how it goes from there. But otherwise, like, how do you keep the machine going when you keep feeding bodies to the meat grinder, and then after a while they just all end up becoming injured or burnt out, whatever the case is? Because we go back to the same thing where the road schedule for WWE was very, very demanding and debilitating. I don't think AEW is as bad, but it still, takes some time and effort to make it to the shows, be in every city, doing the show itself, and then traveling to the next one. It takes a lot out of people, especially if they're not used to those type of schedules. So,
Mm-hmm. From what I've read, they're not their road schedule is not as bad as WWE. Generally speaking, I mean, AEW talent still people still get from AEW still go out and do indie bookings too periodically, depending on their place of the card.
Well, that's good.
Hmm. Yeah, it all depends.
Good.
It's a case by case basis, from what I understand.
I remember back when TNA was, starting to make a name for themselves. Both Christian and Jay Lethal, at different points, held the belt, and they allowed them to take indie bookings. But one of the big fears that they ran into was if somebody on the independent scene decided they wanted to go into business for themselves. So let's say if they're you go to a local show in, let's say, New Jersey, because that's where we live, and
Hmm.
local talent decides, oh, Christian Cage is on this card. I'm going to try to put one over on him and beat him as he holds the TNA title. Like, the TNA title is not up for grabs, but if you were able to say, hey, I pinned Christian Cage while he was the TNA champion, that's great clout for you, but at the same time, it hurts Christian. It would hurt the company that he represents at that point. And I remember that was being like the case where they were concerned of talent trying to go into business and say, hey, I have a win over this big superstar, or I beat this big superstar where he was visiting the state.
Hmm.
So it's great for AEW to allow them to have those openings because it does increase their earning potential when it comes to bookings. But at the same time, you run that risk of what if. So that, and it would suck if you're on a indie booking, all of a sudden you get injured and then you can't make a big pay-per-view. Like, oh, well, that sucks.
Hmm.
But who knows? We'll have to. I don't know. Well, I'll keep following things here and there. Like I said, I've become interested again to a certain extent. I'm just not going to get sucked back into watching it on a regular basis. I think the clips on YouTube or the clips online that other people report on are probably the better way for me to go at this point because I can't dedicate. Is Raw still a 3 hour show?
Last I heard.
Yeah, that's insane. And I remember when I used to watch it on my DVR, I would skip through all the commercials, skip through all the nonsense. Um, Even if you like cut out the intros or the silly promos here and there, like you only came down to like an hour and a half of actual wrestling, if you were lucky.
Hmm.
It's just like
Yeah.
it's like I can't catch it on the back end because I think even you were doing it for a while where you were just skipping the shows but were like reading results, right?
Yeah, I used to just go through and yeah, there was a ton of different websites where you can get like a quick segment by segment recap. And yeah, I haven't done that in years now. Honestly, like if something of interest happens, I'm sure it'll pop up somewhere on YouTube and I'll go watch it. But even sometimes I've been so uninterested in the WWE for years now that I, yeah, I'm still pissed off about 2018 to be perfectly honest with you.
How so?
Well, 2018, that was the year of the first Women's Rumble. So Shinsuke Nakamura won the Men's Rumble, and Asuka won the first Women's Rumble. And so both of them go to Mania. They challenge AJ Styles and Flair's daughter, Charlotte, respectively, and they both lose. How? What the fuck is the logic in that? I mean, I get it. It is a little bit formulaic when it's like, oh, if you won the Royal Rumble, you're effectively going to win the title at WrestleMania. So let's mix it up a little bit. But both, for fuck's sakes, come on.
I can see what you're saying there. Yeah, no, absolutely. Have one of them at least get through,
Yeah.
and to have the women's rumble, which was, a first time event, which was fun to see. Now that they have a women's and men's rumble, it's exciting. But yeah, let that mean something. Don't just have it just be a match. Just have a match. Yeah, no, I get it. That's understandable. Oh, wow, that
No,
was
that was
2018.
2018 because WrestleMania 34 in 2018 was universally panned because AJ Styles retained his world title against Nakamura. Charlotte retained the women's title against Asuka, and the rumor was Roman Reigns was supposed to be Brock Lesnar for the other world title, but at the last minute, Vince, for reasons unknown, changed the finish, so every champion retained at that event. And it was also that was one of these shows where if you go back and watch at the end, by about halfway through the Lesnar Reigns match, the fans are chanting like boring at it. And yeah, it was one of those shows where it was becoming very obvious that the Vince's methodology for how he did things was starting to hemorrhage fans a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What year was it? This is going back a little bit. Maybe it was. No, I don't think it was 2018. What was the year where Daniel Bryan was the heel and Sheamus beat him like in the opening part of the match?
Oh, that was WrestleMania, whatever WrestleMania was in 2012. So that would have been, hold on, let me do a quick math.
Oh crap!
That
Was
would
it
have been like
2012?
that would have been like WrestleMania 28, I think.
Jeez, it's it's further back than I thought. Um,
Hmm.
I remember that one. I didn't. No, mind you, we weren't actually watching this one. We were down in a show in Delaware for Functified Wrestling Federation. JD Smooth ran the company and invited us down, my cousin and I, to have a match. And we were driving home, and as we're driving home, WrestleMania had started. And on my phone came in the news alert that Daniel Bryan had just lost, and my cousin was pissed. And I
Hmm.
started laughing the entire time. He goes, "What's so funny?" I'm like, "I love it. This is great." He goes, "I don't understand what you mean. Daniel Bryan was like so over as a heel. He should have retained over Sheamus." I'm like, it goes to show you that anything could happen at WrestleMania. One of the opening matches, the champion loses. That's amazing. It's like, you better be watching because you might miss something big.
Hmm.
And that's the era that WrestleMania should always have, because you want something big to happen. And the entire time, like, I remember reading all the things online. People were pissed off, and I can't believe this happened. Blah blah blah. I'm like, you should be happy. Again, this is people not understanding the booking sometimes when it comes to WWE. Granted, I don't understand it most of the time, but as you said, Vince McMahon is, his methodology was questionable at best. But that idea of saying, let's have Daniel Bryan drop the title in the opening part of the match, make it real quick, make it like out of nowhere. This will make everybody want to watch the rest of the show because you don't know what's going to happen next. And from there, I was sold. I'm like, I definitely want to watch the rest of the show. I definitely want to see what else is going on. But like you said, for that first women's and first men's Rumble on the same night, two people going to WrestleMania challenging their respective champions, and then for everybody to retain that night at WrestleMania, yeah, that's boring because you're removing the era of the unexpected. So like, oh, it's
Hmm.
just a regular match. I feel like I'm watching an extended version of Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
So I get that. So I'm hoping that they do better now that Vince is no longer in control. Because that was the other thing that they would talk about, with the fact that Vince would change bookings just on a whim. Like, you have your writers, you have your teams, your agents that would do all the different booking for the night, and then they would present to Vince what their plans were, and then Vince would say, "All right, great," or change this or change that, or on the very frequent occasion where Vince would say, "Screw that, we're rewriting the entire show." It's
Hmm.
like, then why have writers? Fuck you. Just run the company the way you see fit. Oh wait, you do.
I don't know. If you can understand Vince McMahon, then you want to know what? You need to get into politics because that means you understand Donald Trump. So go fucking figure.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, they ran amok in their respective territories or their respective arenas, and they did what they wanted to do. But they got results. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But as you talked about before, Vince's whims sometimes would cause the audience or just the fans to say, I'm done with this. Like, why am I still watching this? It's the same BS over and over again."
Yeah.
So that's what, to me, that's what TNA was. TNA was a breath of fresh air. Like, when you would expect something to happen one way, like, oh no, this is a completely different idea of booking. These matches have a different direction. That's what TNA was. That's what AEW was. To letting these guys go out there and work their asses off and present to you a different product. You're like, oh, this could be better. This has potential. But everybody goes back to WWE, and then after like a week or two of watching the shows again, you're like, oh, this is nothing much has changed. But now, again, with Vince being out and Triple H and the new creative team going into place, I'm excited to see what happens. It's not enough to pull me back in on a regular basis, but I'm definitely curious as to seeing the results, how it pans out 6 months to a year from now, and seeing how that all comes to play, because who knows? The simple fact that they actually let their performers stay home for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's like, all right, that's a big step to begin with. You don't have to be traveling all over the place. We were, again, over the holidays when we were over at my brother's, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, there were football games. So those performers or the athletes had to go out there and to bust their butts. And the same thing with New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. There were games going on. It's like, wow, I feel bad for those players that don't have a chance to be home with their families. And granted, they get paid a lot of money to play a game at a elite level, but at the same time, it's like, wow, that kind of sucks. The only other place that does this is WWE. Oh wait, they're not doing that anymore. WWE might have something of an off season coming off. You never know. That's something that was unheard of for quite some time. But it was always the idea that if you lose your spot on TV, then somebody else will come up and grab it quickly, or it'll get filled quickly, and you'll be forgotten within weeks. Again, comes down to booking, comes down to storyline writing and everything else. But who knows? We have yet to see any like real big changes with the new quote unquote regime. Who knows what's going to happen? And it makes me wonder over at AEW if they have any plans to change things up in a big way either, because I know not just the executives, but the former like retired performers they have behind the scenes, and then some of the active wrestlers like Bryan Danielson that go out and actually help with the booking of the show in some regards. It's like, all right, like you kind of have the inmates running the asylum over at AEW at this point.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice in a certain respect. When it's done well, it gets good results. But then at the WWE, we still have yet to see what that's going to pan out to be, so that it may or may not be successful. Who knows? And I don't think we've heard the last of Vince McMahon either.
The most interesting thing I heard of somebody say about AEW, because I got together with a group of people to watch their pay-per-view this past Saturday, and somebody said between last summer and everything that went on over the last year between the Elite, specifically the Young Bucks and CM Punk, and at a certain point in time, depending on who you ask, CM Punk basically told Tony Khan, he was like, listen, let's, with everything that's built up with this about what's going on the internet, you know what, I'm willing to bury the hatchet with these guys, because if we all get together and put something together, we can do a massive money match of CM Punk and FTR versus Kenny Omega and the Bucks. And the Bucks, from what reports I heard and what I've heard around the way, was, the Bucks basically said, no, we're not doing that. Tony Khan basically should have said, you fucking work for me. You're going to fucking be at this fucking meeting or you're fucking fired. It's one of those things where Tony Khan needs to... I also heard another rumor along the way that about a year or so ago, Tony Khan was looking to basically get his own version of like VP of Talent Relations, kind of how Jim Ross used to be. And one of the reasons Jim Ross was good at it is he was respected. And the word around the campfire was that he was looking to bring in Kevin Nash to do it. But unfortunately, with Kevin Nash, between Scott Hall's passing and then his 20-something-year-old son passing, he basically said, I can't do it right now. I just want to stay home right now. So, it was one of those things where, he needs somebody to basically go in there and basically just dictate to people, like, this is how we're doing things. And he also needs to get a couple other fucking things figured the fuck out. Because it's good because he's got, when you've got, like, the Blackpool Combat Club, and you've got FTR, and you've got an Orange Cassidy, and you've got an Eddie Kingston, and you've got all these other, just next level talents, yeah, you can kind of haphazardly throw them all together, and they're going to go out there and have banger matches because these are all such incredibly talented wrestlers. But at the end of the day, sooner or later, you have to have competent booking team, and you have to have somebody who's basically going to say, "I'm in charge. I'm running the show." Can you imagine if somebody told, if Vince McMahon ordered somebody to do something and he just said, "No, I'm not going to do that." Vince would basically say, go the fuck home, and maybe we'll call you. Otherwise, you're fired. We haven't figured it out yet.
That
But that's
also
Go ahead.
that also brings up the other piece of news that I thought about recently. Um, was it Kevin Dunn left WWE?
Oh yeah, the television editor, aka Bucky fucking Beaver, depending on who you ask.
Wait, what does he have that name?
He's apparently got buck teeth. Um, and that's what Jim Cornette used to call him because Jim Cornette fucking hates the guy. So he always called him Bucky fucking Beaver.
Oh, good lord. Okay, I never heard that one. That's funny.
Mhm.
No, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, if AEW wants to really like tighten the reins, they're gonna need a Jim Ross type of character to go be the go between the front office and the talent.
Mhm.
It worked in WWE. Let's face it. Like you had that going for quite some time. I remember for a short while, when Freddie Prinze Jr. joined WWE as a writer, he essentially was doing that role for a bit, where he was calling different talent and then explaining to them what's going on and saying, "Sorry, we don't have anything for you." Uh, it didn't last too long because I think he just got burnt out and he saw like how the magic was done behind the scenes, and then he was like, "Oh, I thought I wanted to do this, but I guess I don't want to be involved that much." Um, but I agree with you 100% that without that piece of the puzzle, you essentially still have somebody who loves to play with toys, owns a bunch of toys, essentially,
Mhm.
but the toys are running amok. So
Mhm.
yeah, you need to have that go between. So who knows what's going to happen? In light of Dunn, who had been there for quite some time, I don't remember how long his tenure was at WWE, but I think that was another mark of the regime change where things are just running differently now. And I don't know if it was his choice or the company's choice. I didn't read that far into it, but it just gives you an example of, oh, okay, maybe they are going to try a different direction for some things, and you'll see some fresh, excuse me, some fresh perspectives when it comes to the WWE product. Because let's face it, every now and then you need an overhaul.
Mhm.
There's a reason why every now and then the Raw theme gets redone, the Raw intro package gets redone because you're like, oh, something new, something fresh. There's a reason why when you go shopping at stores, they move things around in different areas. I don't know if you've ever been to Costco, but one of the most interesting and annoying things about Costco is they rearrange their warehouse often. So when you go to find something, a particular product in a certain area, you'll find it's like 3 aisles down or on the other side of the warehouse. You're like, where the fuck do they move things?
Mhm.
It's just
All grocery stores do that.
yeah, it's to keep you on your toes and keep you, walking around, and hopefully you'll buy more things in the meantime. But keeping things fresh works. And again, another thing about WWE was that for the longest time, they really didn't freshen up their product that often that, fans would get complacent and bored in certain respects. And sometimes it's fun to change things up. I say all
Mhm.
this, and then it's interesting to hear that, Roman Reigns is holding on to the title as long as he has. Um, because I hear the detractors on that one as well saying that, oh, I can't believe he's held it this long. It's mainly due to WWE booking. I'm like, yeah, but in that respect, that is something different and new. They've had a few here and there, but this is starting to become one of the longest, and it's curious to see how long they're going to play it out for.
Mhm.
So, but again, it's we're talking the world of predetermined outcomes, storylines, feuds, characters. Like that's all it comes down to. Um, Going back to that Vice video that I watched earlier today, they were talking about the one reporter. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who was trying to find out the truth of whether professional wrestling is real or not, and he needed to find somebody who would be willing to reveal some of the secrets. And I believe it was Eddie Mansfield was the one performer that actually
Oh,
sat
yeah.
down with the one reporter and was actually saying, this is how this is done, this is how that's done. Because at the time, the idea was not let's expose the secrets, but it was let's get a wrestlers union going and hopefully get these guys some health care. And I just happened to look over at the screen when the guy was talking, and like, bleeding in wrestling, is it real? He goes, oh yeah, it's real. And then all of a sudden he takes a razor blade and runs it across his forehead. I'm like, oh God. But then you see like this trickle of red coming out from the line that he just cut into his forehead. And he goes, if I was sweating, this would be pouring out right now.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh man, I know how they do it. I know how it's done, but it never makes me not cringe. I'm like, oh God, fuck, don't do that. Cause he cut like a good 2 to 3 inches across his forehead.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, okay, yes, remember that for as much as everybody complains that this guy isn't getting a shine, or this guy should get this victory, or this guy's career is over, we're talking about a bunch of predetermined storylines, people. Sorry, spoilers for anybody who still thinks it's real. It's still entertaining, don't get me wrong, but you're talking about a soap opera for men and women at this point. So,
Yeah.
let's not get too caught up in the whole, oh, this victory means his career is over, or this victory means he's heading to another company. Yeah. They're all a bunch of performers. And people go back and forth on that one too nowadays. Do you call them performers? Do you call them athletes? Do you call them wrestlers? They're wrestlers. They're working for a wrestling company, but they're performing in the ring because they're not going out there destroying each other each day. As you mentioned before with the Bucks and CM Punk. The good ones can be professional about it and work together in the ring and not kill each other and make money. The bad ones say, screw it, and I want to do my own thing, and I don't have time for him. That's leaving money on the table, and that's unfortunate for the fans and for them. So, better bet is to say, let's work this out and see how we can all benefit from this. So,
Yeah.
but
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you're there to make fucking money, not behave like a bunch of fucking kids. So if, something that started as internet drama became something in real life, especially with how terminally online a lot of AEW fans are, I mean, Jesus Christ, that was an opportunity to print money, but they just, I don't know. They dropped the ball on that one huge. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
and it amazes me that no matter what arena, like whether it's professional wrestling, boxing, or MMA, how there can be so many missed opportunities, usually because of, front office politics or politics between the competitors or performers or wrestlers or fighters, depending. There's always some kind of missed opportunity, unfortunately, that slips between the cracks. Like I know in WWE, you always have, your dream matches. That's part of the reason why Edge left WWE, because he knew that they weren't going to be using him as much going forward. They're going to be using him as more of a marquee name where he would wrestle every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, screw that. I can still go. Here's a guy who just came out of retirement because he thought physically he'd never be able to do it again. But then he goes, no, I want to keep going. I want to keep working with the with the guys that I know and with the younger talent. I want to keep going. And the front office saying, yeah, you know what? We're concerned about your longevity. We're concerned about this and that. We're just going to hold you in reserve for special occasions or special nights. Okay, you don't tell that to a guy in the world of professional wrestling or any kind of sports because you have a timetable. It's the old Jerry Lynn idea that you have a bump card. And after you fill that bump card, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to tell a guy, oh, we're not going to use you as often, yeah, granted, he's not going to beat himself up as much, but all those years are going to catch up to him eventually. And
Yep.
if you tell them, oh, we're not going to use you as much, well, let's face it, look at The Undertaker. Everybody loves The Undertaker. Long streak at WrestleMania. Huge career at WWE. One of the mainstay guys for the longest time. But at the end of his career, yeah, they used him and, very sparingly towards the end. But it caught up to him, and you can see it in some of his matches to the point where if he didn't prepare well enough for his WrestleMania match, you're like, how much longer can this guy do this?
Mhm.
It gets a little freaky. So if Edge wants to go out there for another 2, 3, maybe 5 years, don't hold him back. Let him do what he wants to do.
Uh-huh.
But guys like Sting, who is going to be wrapping up his career in this year, if they finally say, okay, I'm done with this, great. If not, you become like a Terry Funk, or in this case nowadays, Ric Flair, who's, I don't know if he's going to be getting back in the ring anytime soon, but he has gotten in the
Jesus,
ring.
I hope not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one that needs to stop. Absolutely. Like you cannot let that man get back in the ring again. Whether you love him or hate him, whatever the case is, just there comes a point in your life where the opportunities just need to stop. Let it pass by. If you want to be ringside, if you want to be commentating, great. If you want to be a special guest, awesome. In ring, not so much. It's one of the things I love about Bret Hart. For as much as I love Bret Hart as a performer, as a wrestler, I kind of respected the fact that the guy is like, all right, no, I've had a concussion that took me out of the business. I've had a heart attack that's kind of like screwed up my life a little bit, and in ring is just not for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's had like 1 or 2 matches here and there where he's joined in ring shenanigans, but otherwise he knows that he just can't go to that level anymore. Or if you go back a few years where Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, then he got back in the ring, and then his doctor says, yeah, you should stop doing that. You're going to die. It's like, yes, at a certain level, your body's not meant to be doing that kind of stuff. It's fun. It's performative, but you got to know when to call it quits. So, and a lot of these guys just unfortunately don't have that in their heads. I go back to The Rock. Like, I don't know if he's actually going to have a match coming up at WrestleMania this year,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like they're setting him up for something. And the last time The Rock got into the ring, he tore like muscle off of was it his abdominal? He tore. I can't remember what the injury was. But
Yeah, I don't remember either.
after his match, he was in the hospital and they had to stitch him up and fix him up and everything. It's like, you know what? Not being in ring shape for quite some time, yeah, it doesn't matter how big you are, and especially in The Rock's case, he's more muscle than he is flexible at this point.
I thought you were going to say he's more machine than man these days.
I mean, argument could be made, but yeah, a guy like him can't be doing the same moves that he used to all the time. He's more injury prone at this point. He's older, and that's just a fact. It's not that he's been out of the ring. It's as simple as that. I mean, you're gonna have Hulk Hogan perform like he used to in the '80s in Japan.
Well, no, and I mean that's the thing. Like I mean, like in addition to the fact he's in his coming up on his mid-50s now. I mean, bloody hell! And the guy is like just he looks like he has about 3% body fat and he's solid muscle. You know, it looks great, but I have a hard time believing he's actually that flexible. So, yeah, I mean, like even when he did those matches about 10, 11 years ago with Cena, even in those he looked a little bit in rough shape.
Yeah, and they talk about ring rust, and people they'll have him practice, especially at the performance center or anything else. I'm sure Rock probably has a ring at his place if he really needs to knock off the ring rust. But if you're not in that shape, ring shape is a thing, and if you're not ready for it, it's going to get harder and harder as the years pass. So yeah, I can imagine it being difficult for him to try to get in there, do the same things that he's known for. I'm sure he could still keep up as easy as it used to be, especially with his
Mhm.
mass.
No, no.
Yeah, it just becomes like a different thing. Like another good example, Shawn Michaels. If you see how Shawn Michaels used to throw his super kick when he was younger, compared to how he threw it in later years, when the super kick was first a thing, it was an actual sidekick. That's what it looked like. In later years, Shawn learned that rather than doing a side kick, he can do like a back thrust kick, and he could bring it up real high so it looked kind of like a super kick. And that was like the way he got around not having to be as flexible. And it worked. because people got used to seeing that version of it. So it worked for the longest time. The Rock, again, you're talking about him looking like a real life superhero every day, and that's how he carries himself. That's how he works out. For him, it's not going to be as easy. Brock Lesnar is another guy who, as he gets older, that mass that he carries around all the time, that muscle, it's not going to lend itself to doing all those suplexes all the time. He's going to tear something. He's going to break something. And that's just the body breaking down after so much punishment. So, again, like a lot of people, I go back to MMA, where a lot of fighters, like when they start off in hopefully their mid-20s or late 20s to get into the sport, they might start to consider wrapping it up around 35, 37. Most of them don't make it to 40.
Nope.
Professional wrestling, you can get away with some things because it's, make pretend. But at the same time, there's only so much you can get away with. You can be a Ric Flair, you could be a Hulk Hogan, who late in your later years, 50s or 60s, still get in for the random match that comes about. So it's sporadic. But go back to Jerry the King Lawler, who was at ringside, got involved in a tag match, had his tag match, went back to the commentating booth, and then had a heart attack right there at ringside. It's like, if you're not doing it on a regular basis, if you're not in a certain shape, it'll take its toll on you. It'll break you down, and eventually your body just can't do it anymore. So, I think Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was lucky enough that he kept himself in a certain shape and a certain health, that he was able to get in there and show off some stuff, but not on a regular basis. And especially when you get the crowd in there and the fans and the adrenaline pumping, that's just even more. And then things just go to a different level. And at that point, you're just like, call the match. It's done. Let's go home. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm pleasantly optimistic when it comes to WWE. And I've always been optimistic when it comes to AEW. I just want to see what they have going forward. I really want to see the debut of Jade Cargill. I don't know what they're calling her now in WWE, if they're going to let her keep her name or change it up. And a few other ones here and there that have... We're back at the same thing. Whoever leaves WWE potentially goes to AEW, and AEW, whatever star is there that may want to go back to WWE. It'll be a back and forth. It'll be business as usual when it comes to the world of professional wrestling, even though we have a new leadership over at WWE. But I want to see new matches, new events, fun stuff. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
So, and now that my oldest is showing some interest, it's something that he and I can sit down and watch. So it'll be fun. I think he likes the gimmicky matches just like me. So War Games was a fun one, but he didn't sit around too much for that one. He just saw the double ring in the cages and goes, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." Then he ran off to do his own thing. So hopefully we'll have some more going forward. You never know. I do think we're about at that time, sir. How do you feel?
I'm ready to go to bed.
Sweet. Well, if you made it this long, thank you for listening. My name is Eric Hernandez, here along with
Doug.
Happy New Year, everybody.
We are the Rabblecast.